welcome to Full Court Press. I'm Greta Van Susteren. An alarming report on seafood in America. Foreign companies are ignoring U.S. standards and flooding the market with potentially dangerous food. My colleague Lee Zirk dives into the matter.
Fishing is more than business for A.C. Cooper.
My father's a fisherman, his father was a fisherman. My kids are fishermen. My son-in-law is a fisherman. So it means a lot to us, you know. It's a way of life.
The longtime Louisiana shrimper's worried his way of life may be in jeopardy.
They're slowly killing us.
Since the 1980s, Cooper says his income has been slashed in half, even though his workday starts before sunrise and ends after sundown.
What do you think you're making per hour?
Oh, it's probably $2 an hour.
What's impacting his bottom line might impact you too when you go to a restaurant.
If they worried about their health, it is a serious issue.
The issue, imported seafood. Cheap foreign shrimp are pricing Cooper out of the market. 90% of the seafood consumed in the United States is imported.
I hate to scare the American public about what's going on, but they really need to know where the seafood's coming from.
Cooper says domestic and foreign seafood are held to different standards. He's not shooting steroids or antibiotics into shrimp, but says overseas at farms, that's common.
That's where the frustration comes in. You know, we're not allowed to do it. So if we're not allowed to do it, these other countries that's doing it should abide by the same regulation. Put it into a level playing field. Let us all do the same thing.
Investigate TV has found a sliver of imported seafood is inspected or tested.
How much are we missing?
Potentially a lot.
The Government Accountability Office has published several reports on imported seafood safety. According to the GAO, just 2% of foreign seafood is inspected and less is tested for drug residue. 0.1%.
Producers will use drugs, for example, antibiotics, to make sure that the fish in those conditions are kept alive. The concern there is that the antibiotics and the residues from these drugs are kept in the fish through processing and harvesting, and ultimately will be ingested by the consumer. And the health risk can range from allergic reactions, buildup of antibiotic resistance, and also could lead to various forms of cancer.
Investigate TV analyzed seafood refused for import and found hundreds of shipments turned down in the last 4 years for unsafe drugs. The majority of those farmed shrimp. This may give you perspective on how little they're actually looking at. In 2015, nearly 1.3 billion pounds of shrimp were brought into the U.S. The FDA only tested 550 samples. But get this, of those 550 samples, 12% of the time, inspectors found unsafe amounts of drug residue.
And it raises the question, if they tested more, how much more would they find?
Potentially. I mean, if you extrapolate it from the sample, it becomes a pretty big number pretty quickly.
And how much of that is showing up in our restaurants?
Absolutely.
Johns Hopkins researchers found countries in the European Union inspect as much as 50% of its imported seafood. The EU also requires exporting countries to test for drugs, something the U.S. doesn't require.
There could be food that's rejected in the EU that instead just comes to the United States.
Correct. That's possible.
Seafood unsafe for another country that the government allows you to eat in a U.S. restaurant. And when inspectors reject seafood in the U.S., the FDA doesn't destroy it. It gets handed back to the supplier.
Why can't we just destroy it on site?
We ought to be able to destroy it right on site. In fact, that's what I told the FDA commissioner they should be doing. He said he doesn't think they have the legal authority. Something else that they can do is they can take that bad seafood and repackage it and bring it back into the United States. Again, you got a 98% chance of that seafood not even being tested if you bring the bad seafood back in.
House Minority Whip Steve Scalise calls the limited testing regulations alarming.
We need to have a higher percentage of testing in the United States of the seafood that's coming in.
Catfish is the only seafood with a different stamp from the USDA, not the FDA. The oversight switch happened in 2016.
The playing field is not level.
In 2015, when the FDA was in charge, of the 250 million pounds of catfish imported into the country, the federal government only tested drug residue on 33 samples.
It's worse than a crime. It's almost a sin what's happened to this industry.
Bill Battle says the USDA shows up to his Mississippi farm daily.
And they have the keys to the plant.
When the FDA inspected his fish, visits were rare, but he still questions the oversight of foreign fish.
Consumers out there are going to restaurants, sitting down, ordering catfish. They really don't know what they're getting.
The Government Accountability Office wants the FDA to enter into agreements with foreign countries, forcing them to do the testing before it gets here.
They got containers and containers coming into this country that nobody ever looks at. It just goes straight to the source, straight to where they want them to go, and nobody ever tests it.
Until the standards are tougher, A.C. Cooper will try to hold on to his livelihood.
We know we're not going to get rich in this job. You know, we're going to make a living, we're going to pay our bills, but we like to be comfortable and I don't have to worry where my money's going to come from the next month's bills. Right now, it's getting to that point.
Louisiana U.S. Senator John Kennedy is demanding significant change. He does not trust foreign seafood and says the FDA needs to prioritize inspection. The government is moving to make imported seafood safer. It's enforcing new policies and upped inspection funding by more than $3 million. But Senator John Kennedy is not impressed. He says that money will only boost inspections by roughly 2%. He wants at least 10% of incoming seafood inspected. I recently sat down with the senator. Senator, do you feel confident eating shrimp that's coming in from overseas now?
No, and no American should. And it's most of our seafood. About 80-90% of our seafood is imported. A lot of it comes from China, Vietnam, India. It's shot full of antibiotics. You know why? Because they raise the seafood in such filthy conditions that if they don't give the shrimp, for example, antibiotics, they'll die. Now, what does that tell you?
And of course, the risk of antibiotics is that you might become resistant to it, theoretically.
Yes, I mean, if you eat enough foreign seafood, I don't want to overstate this, but if you eat enough foreign seafood, you become resistant to antibiotics when you really have an infection and you need it. The foreign nations subsidize the businesses, so it's an unfair advantage for them competing against our people. But the health concerns are really paramount. North Carolina did a study recently, found that 1/4 of the seafood being brought into North Carolina from overseas contained formaldehyde. I mean, I don't know what formaldehyde does to you, but I'm not going to run the risk of eating something that could make me sick or grow an extra ear. I mean, nobody knows. And because the seafood's not being inspected. Only about maybe 2% of the foreign seafood is inspected. Foreign nations, foreign businesses know this, so they know they're not likely to be caught.
That 2% number is from a GAO study from 2017. We're now in 2019. We know about this. The United States knows about it. The FDA knows about it. Why are we still only inspecting a lower number? It may have gone up a bit, but how can we let this happen in this country?
It's just not a priority, Greta.
How can it not be a priority if it's as alarming as you say and others say? How can it not be a priority? It's our food supply.
Well, this is what the critics of my position have said to me. Number one, yes, it's true, but not very many people get sick. Number two, we want to encourage people to eat more seafood. It's better for you than, say, beef. We can debate that.
You can stop eating beef, too. I mean, there's another option to that one.
Well, we do a better job of inspecting beef. And number three, they tell me, Kennedy, you're being selfish because Louisiana is a seafood state and you just want to stifle competition. Look, I'm proud of the fact that my state produces a lot of seafood. It's fresh, it's natural. But our people, my people, can compete with anyone as long as there's a level playing field. But if their competition is subsidizing the product, if there are no environmental standards, which saves them money, if they're raising these fish in horrible, filthy conditions, so much so that they have to give the fish antibiotics or they'll die. That's not a level playing field, and it's not safe for Americans. And all my people want is a level playing field.
But apparently in grocery stores, which I was not familiar, it is identified, and I mean it's been identified like that for many, many years. I never noticed it until now because I don't look carefully at the labels.
Well,
and
you do have to look carefully.
And I also was not aware until Investigative TV and Lee Zurich did this report that so much seafood is coming to this country uninspected with all these problems.
And it is a problem, and it's just a question of trying to convince the FDA to make it a priority. The bureaucracy, I don't use that in a pejorative sense, always says too, well, we can't expect without money. Well, I got them a little extra money,
But that gets us to
enough.
4%. That gives us to 4% of the inspection. That's not a whole lot of inspection,
Yes.
at least in my mind.
And it's not just that there's so much product not being inspected. There's no deterrent effect. In other words, a fisherman or a fisherwoman in India says, hey, I can do what I want to here because the chances of me being inspected are virtually nil. And the conditions in which a lot of these fish and the seafood are raised are horrible. Right? They're just, I mean, it would turn your stomach. You wouldn't eat the stuff if you knew it. There's a reason that they give the fish antibiotics.
The contaminated fish, for lack of a better word, that's coming from overseas, if in that 2% inspection, or maybe if we're up to 4%, we identify adulterated or contaminated fish or shrimp, what do we do with it? Do we destroy it right on the spot?
They destroy it, but to my knowledge...
So it doesn't go back to the countries?
No,
to
my knowledge,
resold
nothing
someplace
happens.
else.
Nothing happens. Nobody gets punished. You could probably try to fine fisheries in India, but good luck collecting the money. It's an afterthought. Now, I want to be fair. I mean, folks are busy and they have other responsibilities. But on the one hand, if you're encouraging people to eat more seafood, and seafood is good for you, but you can't guarantee its safety when you know that 90% of it is coming in from Vietnam and India and China, shot full, at best, shot full of antibiotics, at worst, shot full of adulterants that will make you glow in the dark or grow an extra ear, then something's wrong with this picture.
Shrimp and goes all over the country. I mean, you can be in my hometown, Appleton, Wisconsin, and get some shrimp from these other countries that's untested or that's not examined.
Yeah, and most people, you're busy, you're in the supermarket, you're trying to get home, see your family, you're not going to stop and read every label. And true, not everybody gets sick. But I'll tell you this, if you eat enough of it, you're going to develop a resistance to antibiotics.
How do we inspect when the magnitude of seafood coming into this country is so huge? How can we reasonably inspect it?
Just do it.
I mean, but it'd be cost prohibitive. It'd be cost prohibitive.
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. We inspect other produce that comes into our country. We inspect
at a 100% rate, or what's the
no,
rate?
you don't have to.
What's sort of the threshold level? What percentage?
People don't pay, everybody, for the most part, most people pay their taxes, but not everybody is audited. There's a deterrent effect. But if you are audited and you're punished severely and you advertise that fact, it says people go, whoa, I better pay my taxes. It's the same way with the seafood industry. I can't tell you the exact percentage. I just know it's not 2 to 4% is not enough to have a deterrent effect. But if the United States got serious about it and said, we're going to, look, we're happy to buy your product, okay? If it's cheaper, that's fine, you know. But you can't subsidize it. You've got to comply with reasonable environmental regulations, and you can't shoot it full of chemicals that can hurt people, including but not limited to antibiotics. And if you did that for, say, I'm picking a number, 20%, and then you punished companies that tried to sell adulterated products, saying, look, you can't sell here for 6 months. A lot of it would stop.
So I imagine it's quite complex because you've got to deal with the Commerce Department, Treasury, White House, get Congress.
Appropriators, yeah.
Appropriators. I mean, like, it is enormously complicated to get the inspection increase.
It is. And my colleagues tell me, frankly, I want them to be frank with me. Look, Kennedy, you're just trying to protect your seafood industry.
Well, that's fine. That's your job. But I mean,
that's my job.
That's part of, I mean, that's your job. But if it is, as you say, that it's antibiotics, steroids, and anything else, formaldehyde.
It's true.
Then it's a larger problem than the economic situation in South Louisiana.
You're absolutely right.
Now for the FDA's take on the issue. It released a statement that you may find vague. It highlights the millions of risk-based import decisions made every day. It said any seafood violating FDA laws can be destroyed, but did not say whether that is the norm. The FDA also has a program that orders processors to implement action plans in the face of likely hazards. Up next, the man behind this untested waters investigation, Lee Zurik. More on his findings after the break. Welcome back. The man behind the investigation, Lee Zurik, joins us. Nice to see you, Lee.
Good to see you, Greta.
Lee, in your reports, one of the things that I learned is the EU inspects 50% of the imported seafood. The United States, only 2%. How come?
It's because the FDA and the way the government, they allow it. They don't test enough. They're not investing enough resources. They're not forcing foreign countries to do more of the testing like the EU does.
All right, when the U.S. does the testing, and the 2% or less than 2%, and they find some contaminated or bad fish or bad seafood, what happens?
Well, they don't destroy it, and that's really, when you talk to Steve Scalise, the minority whip, that's one of his big things, is that so when we find this stuff, we're not destroying it on site, we're giving it back to them where they could really bring it in at another location in the country. So we're not ensuring that this food that's testing negatively is even being destroyed, or they're getting rid of it.
So if it gets inspected in one port, it's rejected, it can do a little ride around and go to another port where it might not be inspected.
Exactly, and there's such a little chance of getting inspection, there's a very good chance it could make it right back in the country.
Why do they have steroids and antibiotics in the seafood to begin with?
To keep them alive. So on these farms, on these foreign farms, to keep them alive and to grow them bigger. So people like their bigger seafood, like shrimp, you stick antibiotics in them, helps them grow bigger, and it keeps them alive.
And do we not have that in the United States? We don't subject them to steroids and antibiotics to seafood, domestic seafood?
No, we don't. And that's when you talk to local fishermen in the United States, they're saying it's an uneven playing field. So the foreign farmers can put anything in these, get them bigger, whereas the rules here in the United States domestically are much stricter, and they can't do that, so it's an uneven playing field.
Well, there are two issues here. One is you're a good man from Louisiana, so the competition is it's a big fishing industry now, a big seafood industry. The rest of us in the country, we across the country, are thinking like the health aspect of it, that they have contaminated fish coming in, steroids, antibiotics, and uninspected. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And right now, it's up to 94% of the seafood consumed by Americans is foreign seafood. So odds are you're consuming foreign seafood when you go to the grocery store, but also restaurants. If you get a shrimp cocktail at a restaurant or anything, odds are that is foreign seafood.
You know, I didn't know until I followed all of your reports on this that when you go to the grocery store, it'll actually say whether the seafood is domestic or not. I never even saw that on the labels. I see the price, I see what the food is, but for some reason that's always escaped me.
Yeah, I mean that should be, if you go to the grocery store, that should be the first thing you look at. Where is the seafood? Where did it come from?
How alarming is this? We've got Scalise, who's upset, Congressman from Louisiana. We've got Senator Kennedy, but where's everybody else on this?
You know, and that's the thing. I mean, the FDA, the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, has been putting out reports like this thick, for years, literally for more than a decade.
Where's it going, though? Who's reading them?
Nothing's been done. Nothing more has been done. You have Steve Scalise was the majority whip. Now he's the minority whip. This is a big issue for him. John Kennedy, another a senator. This is a big issue for him, yet really not much is being done to change this.
These searches or inspections, I take it, or hope they are at least random. I mean that when the seafood's coming in from overseas, they don't know that a search or an inspection's coming up.
No, they are random, but there is one thing to differentiate. So there's inspections 2% of the seafood is being inspected, but the actual testing for drugs, where we can see what drugs, antibiotics are in it that we don't want, that's only 0.1% that's being tested for the drugs, which is really what we need more of as well, too.
That amount that is tested, do you have any information as how much comes up with drugs in it?
So of the 0.1%, like shrimp, for example, 0.1% inspected. Of that 0.1%, the last year that they tracked it, 12% tested positively for drugs that we do not want in our bodies.
And of course, it's grossly unfair to the people who are in the industry domestically.
They say it's an unfair playing field, which it is.
Indeed it is. Stunning. Thank you. Time for the rest of the picture. Lee, what can people do to make a more informed purchase?
Well, first thing, when you go to a grocery store, check the country of origin labeling. You mentioned that a little while ago. They're required to put that on frozen fish, fresh fish. They must mark where the seafood comes from. They must also specify whether the seafood is farm-raised or caught in the wild. Keep an eye out for products from Canada, New Zealand, or Australia. That's a good thing. Those countries have similar domestic standards to the United States. So if you get seafood from Canada, New Zealand, Australia, it is likely safe and good to eat.
All right, that's the grocery store, but some of us get fish at the restaurants.
That's a little more tricky. Louisiana has a law now where they must tell you where the seafood came from. Most other states do not. So, I mean, you should ask. They're not required to tell you, and they may not even know the answer.
Lee, thank you.
You bet, Greta.
Well, I know you have something to say about this. Tell us what you're thinking. Tweet me or leave a Facebook message. That's all for us. See you next Sunday.